My name's Daisy Hook. I'm an architectural designer and a general space enthusiast, is what I like to say. And I live in New York City. My personal work and my research really focuses on how we emotionally experience spaces and how using evidence-based design we can create spaces that are better for the public. And today I'm going to present my project, Where Do You Go?, which was kind of a culmination of my interests and turning it into something where I'm asking people about their spaces. So I'm going to start with this quote by Alain de Botton, and I apologize if I just butchered his name. So it's, we depend on our surroundings obliquely to embody the moods and ideas we respect, and then to remind us of them. We look to our buildings to hold us like a kind of psychological mold, to a helpful vision of ourselves. We arrange around us material forms which communicate to us what we need, but are at constant risk of forgetting we need within. This is from his book, The Architecture of Happiness, which if you haven't read, I very much recommend. It's a great book. But I like this quote because I think we tend to think about architecture and spaces as just a construction, or maybe a building serving a purpose. But we don't think about it in the intrinsic ways that it's really affecting us emotionally and our personal and our societal growth. And I probably don't need to say this to a group of preservation enthusiasts, but you'd be really surprised with how many people don't think about how they're emotionally being affected by spaces. You know, so I thought about this a lot. I've been asking a lot of people, like, how do you react to a space, or what kind of spaces are important to you? And you're sitting here in a classroom that someone designed, in a building that someone designed, on a street, in a city that we all know, and everyone made a decision to come to what this space looks like. But we don't think about, okay, well, how is this spacing affecting me? And how am I going to the next space? How will that affect me? I don't know, maybe you'll go later tonight and go eat in a restaurant, and that space has been designed by someone for you personally. So every day we're moving from one space to another, and maybe not perceiving exactly how we're being affected by them. It kind of made me think, well, okay, so what types of spaces do people then have strong connections to? And I started asking more questions. Do you have special places you go? Like maybe places you go to be alone or because you feel better there? I don't know if you ever did this, but did you ever put a cover or a sheet over your head when you were a kid and put a flashlight on and it became this really sacred, special space that was just yours? Do you have a space now that's important to you like that? I want you to take me there. So this is what I've been asking people. I want you to take me to this space. And I've been handing out a prompt to people who are interested, friends, anyone I'm talking to that seems interested in space, I give them this prompt. And on it I say, I want you to think about the spaces that have deep meaning to you, spaces that you've spent time in that have stuck with you in your memories, or you still sometimes visit. Do you have a place that stands out against the others? I want you to take me there. Now, that's kind of difficult, right? Like, how do I think about that? How do I get to that space? So I ask a lot more questions. Where in the world is this space? When was the last time you visited it? Have you often visited it since then? Walk me through your experience of entering this space. What time of day is it? How did you get there? What is the first thing that you see? Describe the colors and textures of what you are seeing. What does the ground feel like under your feet? Can you smell anything? Does the smell remind you of anything else? What are you doing while you were there? Why are you there? How long do you stay? When do you leave? Who else is in this space? Who have you taken to this space? And can you remember what you felt emotionally the first time you entered this space? And what about it affected for you to hold on to the memory of it so strongly? And why do you come back? So that's a hard question. Those are a lot of hard questions. And I wanted it to be really fun. I don't want people to get scared by this prompt or turn away from it. So I asked, well, think about the most creative ways that you could respond to it. Maybe you can just record yourself describing this space. So like you're lying in bed at home and you have your iPhone on and you're recording yourself or something. Or maybe you wanted to paint a picture of this or create a graphic visual or just wanted to write it down. For me, the most important thing is that I wanted people to have a lot of fun thinking about spaces and maybe think about them in ways that they hadn't thought before. So right now, this project is in phase 1, which was a little bit difficult for me to figure out how to present to you because I'm all just doing the research right now. meaning that I'm just asking people to submit these spaces because I'm curious about learning more about what it means to have an emotional connection to a space. And I'm hoping through this research that I will maybe find some kind of connection between the spaces that people are submitting or see what their emotional reaction to it is. But I also got a second response to this that I didn't anticipate, and that was that people were saying that they were leaving the room after having read my prompt or looking at the world in new ways, and that they were suddenly thinking about how they were interacting with spaces. And for me, that's incredibly exciting because I really want to build better environments, but I don't think that we can build better environments if we aren't conscious of the environments that we're in currently. So I want to present to you two responses that I've received to this prompt that stood out to me. The first is by Gracie Zed. She's an illustrator and an animator who enjoys creating a mess wherever she works. She completed a residency in Brazil and will be joining another in France later this year, searching for the home she creates in her work. I really love that. She wrote, "I have strong memories of ravines and forests in the Pacific Northwest and Alishan, Taiwan from childhood visits. I often go back to these places in reoccurring dreams with strong sensory experiences from when I was a child till now. The wind is strong, air is fresh, misty, and I'm flying or spinning." Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. And this is her response. I really love that she depicted it visually. Can you hear me now? Is that good? Are you? Is it? I don't really know how to change the microphone entirely. Okay, good. Yeah, I absolutely love this. I love this for multiple reasons. One, because she is starting off with her being a bathtub. And so she's not actually physically starting off in this space. She's starting off in a memory of a space and then moving back into the woods. She also sent me two pictures of the woods. Here's this one. Isn't this beautiful?
Where is it?
It's in the Pacific Northwest and Alishan, Taiwan. So two spaces that I guess were very similar to her and her memories. I lived in Seattle for 10 years, and I have to say it's beautiful up there. It's just like the most beautiful woods you've ever been to. They're super wet, so it smells great. Here's another picture. But again, I wanted it to be really free. I didn't want people to get bogged down by the idea of it having to be a certain space. I wanted to keep this prompt really open because I was also excited in seeing how people would respond. So the second response that I want to show you today is by someone who's a good friend of mine, Leander Knust. He is a conceptual artist. He lives in Red Hook and was most recently awarded the Socrates Annual, yesterday actually, so congratulations to him. And his space is in Diller Isle, and he actually responded with a musical piece. So I'm going to play that while I read to you his text that he sent. Diller Isle has a story inspired by acid trips, so many of which I had there with old friends. Diller Isle is an island in the center of the lake we would always take kayaks to. It is upkept by the Maine Conservancy and has an empty old cabin we would always take kayaks to. Oh, sorry. Its Maine Conservancy has an empty old cabin on it that serves as a weekend home for anyone who knows the secret. All throughout high school, the cabin was filled with old books, artworks, canned food, stocked by the family of the original owners that go as far back as Central Maine's lodging years, before they even dammed the lake, and the more frequent visitors. In 2010, there was a fire on the island, and when the campers tried to get a hold of the fire department, first they had no cell service and had to take a boat to find someone. And then, when describing it to the fire department, where the fire had occurred, they didn't know the name of the island. Presumably, they didn't notice the lovely weathered hand-painted sign marking its original family's name, Diller, or the fire department didn't have a map of islands with their names. Since the island is upkept by the Conservancy and liability issues became highlighted during this kerfuffle, cell service was installed at the lake and the island was altered according to Maine Public Campsite Code for the first time. The old books were taken, the artworks removed, a gravel bed was poured, and a large steel fireplace atop. The memorabilia was replaced with safety information and cautionary signage, and the messy cursive carved diller was replaced with a new sign. In case of emergency, call 911. Your location is Loon Island. I made my music moniker Diller Isle in honor of this, and the song carries the essence of my memories spent in its past aura. And I can let you listen to the song for the rest of it. Maybe if you want, you can close your eyes and think about this space and what it's like. I'm going to pause it there because it's a really long song, but it kind of just goes on like that. And I chose this one because he responded with a song to a space, and also because it's a story about preservation, and how sometimes when you're preserving something, you can also lose something. And so it's important that we think about what the emotional value of a space is, and that we're not just preserving something based on its being a Hadid or a famous architect or something else like that, but that we're also always considering, well, who are the people that have connections to these spaces? I mean, they're trying to conserve it and to make this space something that's accessible by putting gravel on it, but in a way they also lost a very cherishable part of it, and the name, which I think is crazy. So I want to bring this back to New York City and everyone in this room, and I've handed out a bunch of paper for you all, and I want to ask you to think about the same prompt that I just asked other people to think about. I'd like this to be an active session, so I want you to have fun with this. Maybe you can take the next few 10, 15 minutes and have a writing session with yourself. You can write it in bullet points, whatever you'd like to do that feels comfortable. But I'd love for you to take a time to reflect on spaces in New York City. And if there's any brave volunteers, I would really love to hear from maybe 2, 3 of you at the end of this what your response is and where you go in New York City and why it's important to you. I'm going to pull up all the questions that I used before. It's a little, can you read this? Because I'm noticing that it's a little bit light in here. Okay, good. You can use these questions to guide your response. I'm going to put on some music so it's not completely quiet in here. And if you'd like to take some time to respond to this, and then in about 10 minutes, I'll pick up the session again and we can talk about where we got. If anyone needs more paper or anything, let me know. So I'll give you a few more minutes and then I'm going to wrap it up. Just a few more minutes and then I'll be wrapping it up. Does everyone feel like they had enough time? Do you want more time? Everyone's very quiet, so I feel like that's a good sign. All right. Do you feel like that was enough time to write something down for all of you? Yeah? Does anybody feel like sharing their space? And I realize it's always difficult because it's something that's so private to you, right? Like you're not really always ready to talk about that, but I would love if anyone would volunteer to talk about a space that is important to them, and we can make it more of a, I know this is a bit of an auditorium sitting right now, which is less of a group, but I'd love if it felt just really comfortable to talk about this to each other. You? Do you want to, Liz? Would you like to share yours? I think we can, do you think we can hear you?
Look at all those tall buildings. They keep up like this, you won't be able to see the sky. Then another experience I had, and I was taking the B45 bus heading downtown, and I was reading. And I happened to look up, and my first impression was, my goodness, the world changed. Because there were all these buildings that had not been there, and there had been open space. So in thinking about what we do here, I'm thinking about what's happening, and I'm from Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and I'm thinking about the loss of open air. And I think about talking with people over the years about stress and how it manifests itself, and talking to people on the West Coast about what it sense is like when you go out and you see the trees and you smell fresh air. Stress manifests itself to me a little different versus when you cut out your building and all you see is concrete. So that's what this made me think about. Now I don't know what it means to others, but that's how this impresses me, and I just feel concerned about the loss of fresh air, the loss of what I feel is a loss of green space. And, for our young people, I mean, what do they see? What are they growing up with? So that's what I came on.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's a really valid point. I think sometimes we think about what we're preserving in terms of buildings, but also can we preserve our skyline, can we preserve our sightlines, can we preserve our nature? A lot of the responses that I've been getting to this project aren't spaces that were physically built by someone, but spaces that you ended in our nature. We have two of these, the two that I showed you today were from that, but when people respond to spaces and they're important to them, a lot of them are based in some natural settings. So maybe that's, when we think about what to preserve, we need to think about parks and all of these spaces that are so important to us where we get along. We're people, we're humans, we need natural environments, so of course we need spaces that are natural as well. Anybody else want to talk about this, please?
I live on Roosevelt Island, and my apartment faces out over Queens, and I'm on the 17th floor. It used to be a panorama of nothing. Now it's Long Island City every day. But the beauty of it is the river is there. No one can build in the river. And luckily, okay, but no, the little blue white ferries go by. And no, luckily I have Queensbridge Park across from me, which is still a park, and Queensboro Bridge is still there. But there is something that, facing east, you open the blinds in the morning. Sometimes you're blinded by the sun. And it's just this lovely view of trees and a park. We forget the power plant. Luckily, there's a big housing project, which they can't move this week. And there's a tranquility, and the space of it is that, even though they're building in the distance, I still have my few acres there of space.
And you have the view that she doesn't have. I mean, you're having that like.
Come live with me.
That's funny. Anybody else? Yes, I'd love to hear yours.
I used to live on Staten Island, and I would enjoy walking around Silver Lake Park, especially in the early spring. The cherry trees are pink and white blooms, and I like walking around the lake, which used to be a reservoir. There is an elevated section near Forest Avenue, and I walk down the step path to an observation area on the north side of the lake, and then take the path around the lake. On the south side, a portion of the golf course is visible, and the delightful golf house, which is a U-shaped peak roof structure from the 1920s or 30s, with white stucco walls. I also crossed the lake after walking on the west side on a road that crosses the middle of the lake and past a gray stone pump house in the middle.
Well, did everyone feel like you were kind of right there with him, like on that path? That's a really nice way to describe it, is to take someone with you in space. And I think we can create some empathy when we're taking people to spaces that are important to us so they can understand. And we all know that when you're narrating a story, you use one story versus 6,000 people's story, you create kind of a sense of closeness. So when we're talking about these spaces, I think it's really important that we talk about it from our perspectives in many ways. Did anybody do anything else, like a drawing, or do you love to share?
No, I did not do a drawing.
But I'd love to hear it anyway.
So near me is Stuyvesant Square Park, and there are more direct routes to get to Second Avenue and places I want to go. But I often will take a deliberate detour, including a while ago when it was kind of structurally and had kind of extra stuff by the Parks Department. But I would just walk through and I choose no way. It's very small, so which direction am I going to go, or am I going to walk around the perimeter? And what I've realized recently is that whenever I come to a best pocket park anywhere, I stop and I look at it. And I stick my nose up and I see what's going on. Sometimes there's nice plantings, even if they're not. And I feel like it's not just because I love the quiet and the green in contrast to other things. I feel like it's a very tiny act of defiance in New York City to stop. You're busy on a fast walk to stop and to just look at something that is still a tiny little part.
Thank you for sharing. You want to do drawing? So I don't have anything to present it, but maybe if you're comfortable sharing your drawing and handing it around. It'd be really great. You want to talk about it for a second?
Well, you inspired me to think about it. I guess it's the mall and Central Park, and it's probably special to a lot of people, but that I've spent time there, in the summer and in the winter. And a couple of years ago, I went there for, I think it was New Year's Eve, and they had fireworks. I went with some friends, so I feel like it has special memories. throughout the year. And just, I'm inspired by the architects or designers who built Central Park, and that is, it's an outdoor space, but it feels like a room outside with trees and, movement through it. Talked about all the, the elements of it, the fence, the benches, the pavement, and the sky, and the trees, and it all just forms a space.
Why do you go back? Why do you go there?
Because I know that, I've studied that, so I know that what the designer's intent was, so to kind of know that they wanted you to move through there or go to the fountain or be drawn to the fountains.
You should say maybe it's an easy way to feel comforted by six for someone to be here to relax it.
Orient you,
Yeah, it's orientation.
like their intention, and I can still experience that.
Yeah. We have some nice guided meditation anyways. I see the theory going. Can I show you?
Sure. Well, the space that came to mind as you were speaking of that for me was the 6th Street turning basin, which is an arm off of the old Gowanus Canal. And it's sort of a weird part of Gowanus because it's one of the only spots that you can't really see from any publicly available spot. You have to be out on the water to get into this space. And there's old boats, sunken barges, and it's ringed by the sort of the backs of old warehouses. And the thing, when I go into this space in a canoe, sometimes solo, is this feeling that you're in this truly feral place, even with the city all around you. And it's often silent, and you might see a cormorant. It's also very polluted, like you can see the rainbow in the water around you. So it's just a very strange and one-of-a-kind place. And I think the other aspect that makes it feel special to me or meaningful is that I know that there are plans to